I've come from a world of builders, and it came naturally to me to like want to solve a problem and to want to build something that was better. I can't sell my soul for a household name because it's a famous brand that quite literally like an actress owns.
Welcome back to the Leadership and Logistics Podcast. I'm excited to have our next guest on. She has a fascinating history in the world of supply chain, stemming back from her childhood and the produce space of food distribution. Today, we're joined by the CEO and founder of Full Good Fulfillment, Caitlin Wilson. Caitlin, how we doing?
Hi, Justin. Thank you for having me. This is so fun. Full circle. We worked together years and years ago, but I'm loving reconnecting with you with my new venture. So fun.
Yeah. Fortunately for both of us, we were connected through some mutual friends, Derek and Ashley. Shout out to them, incredible
Yes.
people who obviously have incredible friends. So, Caitlin, I'm glad we could connect. Little did I know your background at the time of Derek and Ashley introducing us, but we have, since, we hit it off, learned a lot about what you all do, and you're right in our, wheelhouse with what we do, working with CPG brands. But to kind of set the stage, talked about your roots. Fill us in. Is what you're doing now? Is it in your blood? It seems like it comes naturally to you.
Yeah, I mean, so I grew up in the produce industry, granddaughter, niece, and daughter of farmers. So I'm really like fifth generation of that industry. Farmers are the true entrepreneurs, and they really are like constant problem solvers. I grew up in my family is one of the larger leafy green grower shippers in our country. Um, Companies called Tanner and Annal.
I've heard of them.
And so I grew up kind of in that industry. My whole life has been operations, logistics, and solving the problem of getting perishable products across the country and really across the world. I started Full Good as a result of problem solving, which again, just part of who I am and how I was raised. A friend of mine was starting a fresh frozen dog food company and asked me to help him bring the product to market. A few years after I left TNA, I was with my family's business for a number of years and decided to leave to become a mom and just, kind of do my own thing. Still very heavily involved in the family business. And, that will always be a part of who I am. But yeah, so in doing that and helping a friend of mine, really realized like how I guess I was in my own little bubble in the produce world and logistics and operations and produce was very streamlined, but we worked really, really hard at TNA and, creating processes and programming that provided value and service to a lot of the retailers that we worked with. And that, again, that was just kind of what I knew. And so coming and helping a friend of mine with his fresh frozen dog food brand, and then like as a customer going to, try to get fulfillment support and logistics support, I was like, okay, why is this so difficult? And so it opened my eyes to like a much bigger landscape and a much bigger problem in our country with, relative to food of not just perishable, right? Not just fresh produce products that quite literally have the shortest shelf life in the grocery store, but, okay, shelf stable, frozen, refrigerated also have these problems. And, how can we provide more assistance and support? And so Full Good was born. And so we've been doing this for about 4 years now. And yeah, it's been a wild ride. It's been awesome. It's been enlightening.
I was going to mention, it seems like when companies are founded, there's either an issue someone's trying to fix,
Yeah.
or they're trying to make something better. Like
Yeah.
whether it doesn't exist yet or a service product doesn't exist yet, trying to make something better. So you move over to, a pet food manufacturer brand. You notice all these issues because they, with the family business, those processes for the most part were in place. You were evolving and continuing to scale. With the dog food brand, pet food brand, you're building these processes that
Yeah.
aren't necessarily in place. So you notice there's an issue here, and then that what kind of ignites a fire in you of, oh, this is a shit show. We need to fix it, or to tell us more there.
Yeah, no, I think like at the end of the day, my family's business, we were one of the leaders as far as like transparency and food safety. There, back in the 90s, early 2000s, there was a lot of, kind of E. coli outbreaks, salmonella, right? There was a lot of kind of like food safety issues happening in produce. And at the same time that, the farm bill was being rewritten. And so there was a lot of kind of like parts of my early career that I was involved in that really like led to where I am now. And in food safety and really like bringing our food across the country. I think my number one thing is the transparency piece and fulfillment and warehousing. And there the biggest like issue that I found with helping my friend's brand was like, we never knew what inventory levels were. We really didn't know what we were paying for. Like, this massive bill would just come every month. It was really difficult for us to find like traceability of orders, right? And like where's the tracking information? We sent a pallet of dog food to this place. Did it arrive? So just like the communication and the transparency piece were really missing. And to me, like coming from TNA to Full Good, like I was like, okay, this shouldn't be a problem. Like that, why is this a problem in our food system? And yes, I was helping a pet food brand, but like if this was happening to a pet food brand, like why is this problem here? And we had a solution for the pet food company, but I did a lot of research on like, okay, who else is out there? And I quickly realized like, oh, they're saying one thing and like doing another. And I'm very much a person of like how you do one thing is how you do everything. And so and that's how I was raised. And that's how like TNA was built on that legacy as well. And for generations, like we still are the premier produce shipper in the Salinas Valley. And so I brought that kind of mentality and that energy to this space. And I've come from a world of builders, and it came naturally to me to like want to solve a problem and to want to build something that was better. And again, we're 4 years in, we're obviously still building every single day, and it's going to take time to continue to build. But like, I mean, shoot, we're servicing over 50 brands now, and that doesn't sound like a lot of brands, but like, we're very intentional about who we're partnering with. And the why of that is because, we really are people's operational partners. And that's another problem that I think is like happening in the fulfillment and logistics space. And why, I appreciate so much what you and Brian are doing, Justin. And you guys are also walking the walk. Like this needs to change in our industry. So if there's can be more of people like us that like actually do what they're gonna say, they do what they say they're doing, and they really stand by their word. And so that's really the baseline of Full Good.
I love it. And you mentioned a few things, with the transparency, the integrity, partnering with, you know, the intentional, partnerships that you are pursuing. Does this make sense or does it not?
Yeah.
But I do want to back up, and then I want to get back to this. But for our listeners, Full Good, third party fulfillment center, you all partner with CPG brands. For those who maybe listen who aren't as familiar with our
Yeah.
space and what a 3PL is, can you tell us more on what exactly Full Good does?
Let's say you have a concept, right? And you go and you manufacture that product. We only work with food and beverage. So a lot of, the CPG world kind of nowadays is encapsulating a lot more than that, but we really work with food and beverage. So anything with a lot code and an expiration date, fresh, frozen, and dry. So that brand then needs somewhere to go after they manufacture. Generally speaking, manufacturers are not going to house the finished goods. Some do, and that's lovely because that's like a full. I mean, listen, if you could find a partner that does that, awesome. They're just really hard to come by nowadays. So we are the quite literal warehouse then for that brand. We also provide order management support. So the second that pallets come in, I guess I'll back up a little bit more, but inventory management starts, right? So the second that pallets arrive at our warehouse, they're placed into inventory for that brand. And our proprietary software product, which is, we'll get to, but a lot of what we're developing is, the timestamps, right? And the traceability and the transparency to that pallet itself. So the second the pallets come in the door, they're given a life and a chance to live within our warehouse. Um, so then they're placed into a pallet space, right? And then they're either based on FIFO or based on the customer's request, they're then pulled for orders. And what I mean by that is like, listen, if you're dealing with Target or another retailer that demands 75% shelf life or a certain amount of days, per, until expiration for sell through, then we pick according to that. Or if you're like, oh, this is going to influencers or sample programs or things like that, let's pick from this palette. So we really give the clients of ours, the brand owners and the founders, the transparency and the authority to really like what's happening with their products during the life cycle of the brands of the products being here with us. So, order management, inventory management, and then, replenishment management. Like a lot of brands also are like, okay, I just don't want to think about this. Like, can you guys provide that support as well? And so we flag them when, expiration dates are coming up or when they're starting to run out of product, you know, pretty much or as little involvement as brands want us to have. And that goes all the way through to like ordering trucks from you and Brian or, working with like any other kind of part of the life. If we need to work with Kahee, if we need to work with Unify, any distribution channels that the brand is wanting to be involved in. So that's what we do at Full Good. We even down to like answering emails of like the hello at emails, right? For brands. We now have a team that does that as well. So it's really truly an extension of the brands. And, earlier I was talking about being intentional about our partners and what I really meant by that is like there's just some brands out there that don't find value in what we do. And it's funny because we tell them kind of from the beginning we demand like an onboarding call and or a pre-onboarding call and it's kind of an interview between us and the brands. And if we can't see eye to eye on like the services that we provide and what we know that your brand needs, then it's best you go find another partner because you will never find value in what we do. And I'm okay with that. What I'm not okay with is brands coming in here and then like kind of not taking advantage of us, but like like kind of questioning every invoice or, you know, questioning what we do. It's like, no, listen, we're your partners. Like
Yeah.
we're very intentional in what we do for you. And we want you to succeed as a brand because at the end of the day, if you're moving a bunch of pallets and a bunch of volume in and out of here, that's where we make our money. We don't make our money on like nickeling and diming on little invoices here or there. We make money on you succeeding.
To hear you go into detail, like the passion comes out.
Oh,
It's
thank
very
you.
clear with, hearing you go into detail about how you partner and the intentionality behind, the brands that you do work with or want to work with. I'm putting myself in the shoes of, you know, let's say I'm a sole owner or Brian and I start a beverage,
Yeah.
brand and, we're growing. We started parcels. We got a few LTL pallets. I putting myself in the shoes of a business owner and feeling the relief from the anxiety of not knowing what's going on or not knowing whether
Right.
or not, a SKU is being replenished or that shipment's being delivered on time. You are able to offload that anxiety,
Mhm.
bring true value to your partners and help them scale to reach their goals of growth and whatever that may be. So, I love the way you put that and especially the being super targeted and intentional about who you work with. Your
And I
team
mean, listen, it's not to be like, oh, that brand's not good enough for us. It's more of a mindset thing, right? And really like understanding that it's funny. I mean, we've had a few brand and I'll be totally transparent. We've had a few brands that have left us and that have come back. And just in the 4-year period. And they've left us over like a very small margin, right? And what they've realized listen, I another phrase that I love in business is no ego amigo. I think that's how you say it. No ego amigo.
I'm picking
But
it up. I
really,
like it.
yeah, yeah. But I mean, at the end of the day, like, you know, you end up spending more money as a business owner, whether you're a brand owner or whatever else, if you don't do it right the first time. And what I mean by that is like, if you're trying to get into Target and you take shortcuts, Target will ping you on the back end, right? If you can lean on us or another expert in the field to help you be successful in that launch into Target, you will not, yes, we might be $3 more a box because we're taking all the steps necessary, right? We need to be paid for our labor, that's involved, right? But if we can explain it in a way that you are then and the expert, right? You for your brand and you really understand what we're doing, then there is value there, and listen, if you truly if you leave us for a small margin and come back and don't come back with your tail between your legs, just come back and say, "Wow, God, I value you guys now." And that's happened twice. And we've only been in business for 4 years. So like it's just it shows me that there's, such a cycle with these brands of like the understanding of what it really takes. And again, it's, do how you do one thing is how you do everything. And do it right the first time. And then all of a sudden there's, yeah, your margins might be affected for a minute, but you'll make up for it. Trust the process, right?
Well, I know you have a history in logistics industry as a whole, but it, there's so many transactional relationships. I don't even want to call it a relationship. It's just a transactional industry to begin with. It always has been.
Right.
There's extreme lack of transparency, but we do the same exact thing. I think that's the one thing that caught me when because there's mutual referrals between us, but I believe I referred one of our clients to Full Good,
Yeah.
introduced them to you. It was the first time I saw you reply to introduce yourself, and it was a quick elevator pitch. And
Yeah.
I was just like, wow, that's exactly what Brian and I originally wanted to do when we founded Veritas. Is this has to make sense for both parties. This isn't a
Right.
transaction. We're not chasing a buck. If
Right.
someone says a few things that they're looking for, and it's just I don't care about updates, and I don't care about communication, I don't care about the relationship. Be like, you need to be cheap, as cheap as possible. Get it, we're probably not going to be a good fit. That's not what
Right.
we're looking
Right.
for in our clients. We are very focused on building strategic partnerships, and that's exactly what you all do as well. So that's what you know attracted me to what you all do, and why I want to refer as many of our partners to you all is because I recognize the value that you bring to your clients.
Oh, thank
And I
you.
know for a fact it's missing in the industry because there isn't that transparency you speak of.
Yeah, and I think, like, at the end of the day, listen, like, I mean, we live in an amazing country and we live in an amazing market, right? That allows for, like, the cheap players. It allows for, the premium players, and there's gonna be a house for everyone, and that's what's, like, so beautiful about doing business in the United States. But, I think at the end of the day, knowing who you truly are and then being able to communicate that clearly is, very, very important. And I think if the brain could say that they understand, or the client could say that they understand that, right? And I mean, one particular referral that you sent my way, like we had great conversation. It was a big household name brand, all of that. And at the end of the day, like I ended up actually not getting the business over like 10 cents. And it's like, okay, great. Like that's fine. I will stand on the hill and die over that 10 cents because I value the people that work here. I value what I'm trying to build, and I know my costs. And unfortunately, like I can't sell my soul for a household name because it's a famous brand that, quite literally like an actress owns, like and that's okay, and I think I learned that in the produce industry, right? Like we would always kind of go through these cycles with these big retailers that, over 10 cents, over 25 cents, over and I'm still in that world, but what I learned in the produce industry is like how you handle that like let's say that like fall down for is how again how you handle everything. So, it's funny cuz that person has actually emailed me back and has said to me like listen, let's keep the conversation going. And so I'm like, oh, this is 4 months later, and you're reaching back out, and we actually never even started doing business with him, and it was only right, and it was only over that really small margin. So I really believe, and that's the foundation of, like, again, how I was raised and like what Full Good's all about. And I think, like, at the end of the day, how I want to shake up this industry is it could work for people that are even the cheap leaders, right? It doesn't have to be about price. It just has to be about communication and service level. And I mean, you could still be cheap and provide a great service. It just might be missing. There might be a few holes there because you can't fill those holes because you don't have the ability to do so with your margin because you're cheap, right? But that's okay if the transparency piece is there, and if, like, at the end of the day too, in our food system, like, we really need transparency through the food system. And if we're learning nothing else from what's happening, especially with, the most recent movement, right, with the red food dye thing, and kind of knowing your farmer, and like all of those things. I mean, that's been a part of, like, my world in the farming industry and the produce industry since day one. Like, the brand owners should know the entire life cycle of their products, right? Their pretzels, their chocolates, whatever it is that we're helping, their peanut butter, and recently, I mean, there's a lot of people that are doing that, that are providing that transparency and that are filling those holes, because you don't hear about recalls happening as much anymore, right? And so it's starting to happen.
And I imagine for you all, we hear this constantly, but for you all, I imagine it's the same story. They want as cheap as possible, but service, it's got to be
Yeah,
top notch. It's like
right.
those, it's not really feasible because for service to be top notch, you have to have other resources to pour into that
You
service.
do.
So,
Yeah.
but I hear it constantly on our end. I imagine you do the same. I did want to ask Caitlin, what you, I know you all can pretty much pick and plug and fill voids and help, with flexibility with whatever challenge that one of your partners or a potential client is facing. But is there a sweet spot? Like, where does Full Good come in the life cycle of a CPG brand? Is there a sweet spot of like, oh, okay, this is right in our wheelhouse, or is it kind of that a la carte model that you can do, or is it both?
Yeah, I mean, what we've found is that the brand has to have a proven concept, right? I mean, at the end of the day, it only makes sense to afford a company like ours, like the assistance of a company like ours, if you have a certain amount of orders per week. We say like 50 orders per week. So, and what I mean by that is like 50 direct to consumer orders, or like, if you're doing only wholesale or only retail, great, let's have a certain amount of pallets per week. And why we say that is because we have a general idea of what, it takes to kind of get to that space. And you need to be like kind of within that, like, let's say, proven concept $1 million range, to then employ a 3PL. Now, there are a lot of brands that are like brand spanking new right out of the gate. They have funding, that's awesome. Great. And 3PL is part of their plan because they're focusing on retail, or they're, already going viral on TikTok or whatever. So it's hard to say, like, where at the beginning stages. We have a few case studies now. We love helping brands when they're in that early stage, and building them to like that $30 million mark. Because then they're ready to be sold, or they're ready for series, they're ready to go for series A, or they're like legitimate. We're able to really help them during that life cycle. Whereas I think other 3PL brand, like, companies, or at least in my experience, from saving a few brands, a lot of 3PLs just don't give them the time of day that they need, that support wise operationally. So, and what I mean by that is, like, listen, they may not even know how their orders from Unify or KeHE are going to come in. They may not even know what, like, EDI even means, or, what it takes stickering wise to get into Amazon, or, all of the things that we can kind of like help educate brands on. It happens during that like 0 to $30 million mark. Um, and then from there, it's like, shoot, I mean, we'll stay with them, for the life cycle of their brands. And there's a few that have far exceeded that mark that are still with us. But it's really awesome because they believed in us from day one, right? When I was really building something with my team from day one, they believed in us, and we've helped them get to that place. And so again, to have 2 dozen case study brands that we've done that with, it proves the model.
So
Uh,
is there necessarily a shelf life for the services that you all bring? I mean, I imagine if if let's say our beverage brand, we want to grow to 500 million.
yeah.
I mean, is there a shelf life for you all where
I
we
don't
would
think
bring it
so
in
because
house?
we're able to grow with the brands, right? And we provide, margin support as a result, right? Like you grow, we will reward you. And we'll drop by 25 cents, 50 cents, a dollar, so we are developing like, okay, what happens next? What happens next? And not to be like bootstrappy, but like that's okay. And the reason why it's okay with these brands is because like I'm really transparent with them on, hey, oh my gosh, this is so exciting. You're my first brand who's hit 150 million. And like, oh my gosh, you got Series A. And oh my gosh, like, and we helped you get there. Right. And they recognize that too as our partner. And so because of it, it's like, okay, let's sit down and let's look at our numbers and let's meet you where you need to be and where we need to be. And it's awesome because then there's like mutual respect there. And because we're so transparent with people, they're able to like really see us for who we are, and they respect that. And so I don't think there is. I mean, my goal with this thing is to go national. And I really do think that I mean, we're starting in Denver. We're the middle of the country, which is lovely because for a lot of brands they're realizing like, okay, I can get to California for $5, but I could also get to New York for $5 and I could get to Florida for $5. So all of a sudden my COGS, like my cost of goods sold, is like pretty even across the board. You know, Granted, if you're a California-based brand, you mostly sell in California, then you probably don't wanna consider Denver, right? But if your goal is to go national and you wanna have, like, a national reach, it's nice to be in the middle of the country, you know? So, but, again, we wanna go national. We wanna be able to identify, like, do we go to Southeast? Do we go Southwest? And really be able to have that network. I don't think that there's, like, a life cycle for what we're doing here. It's so well received, and there's such a need for it. And again, we're flipping the script here. So, as far as I'm concerned, like, other 3PLs, I hope will step up as a result of like what we're doing. And that's what I want, right? Like, I want competition, but I want other people to step up too and provide a better service level and more, answers in the food in the cycle of that brand. Because, knowledge is power, is power. So, I mean, there's really like no reason why other 3PLs shouldn't want to provide the same service level. If they're at scale, they should be able to do it with with like tiny little bit of margin. So yeah, I mean that's the goal, right? Is to be able to really grow with these brands.
I'm glad you said that, and it seems like you guys are obviously disrupting the status quo for your space. And there's a ton of spokes that go into the overall supply chain in the U.S. But you know, I felt like 3PLs from on the freight brokerage side, there was zero transparency.
Yeah.
You know, if you were to see a competitor or you go to a convention, it's like, oh, all of our cards are closed. But
Right.
why not be transparent and raise the bar of the entire industry so we can all get better? We can all get more efficient. It doesn't need to be such a closed door approach to what we do when
Right.
if collaboration raises the bar and drives competition, that's a win-win for everyone involved, especially consumers. So
Well, and at the end of the day, like, we're not asset based. We don't own, we have a warehouse, that's it, right? So we have to work with carrier groups like yourselves that, may or may not be asset based, but that have great drivers, right? And so, like, just speaking to kind of like dovetailing into what you're saying, like, you know, we want the experience to be great for drivers too dealing with us, right? So we offer a bathroom, we have a break room, we have, right? Like all the things that I saw that, again, we did it at TNA. We had a great cafe that like truckers talked about online. We had, there was just a few things that my family did to make the experience great for everyone involved. And I think that that's like, I spoke with you the other day about like kind of this disruption that's happening with drivers and with like carrier groups in our country and how they're treated. And I think like if I could provide like if we can provide a little bit of light at like during a pickup for them. So if it's a fresh bottle of water, I mean just little things, right? Things that we take for granted every day, but they're not sitting in an office, right? They're driving products across the country. So, I mean again, that's part of the life cycle and that's part of the transparency piece is like come to full good, get backed in and take a break. We'll load the truck, like you inspect it. Let's get the BOLs taken care of. Let's do all that. But in the meantime, come take a little bit of a 5-minute break, you know, and feel appreciated.
It's wild because it seems so basic,
It seems so
but
basic. Yeah.
it's there's no action behind it. But if you are a shipper or you are growing a CPG brand, let's say you have a decision to make between Full Good and ABC Fulfillment Center, 2 blocks away from you all. Drivers are going to there's going to be familiarity in that market,
Yes.
so drivers are going to understand. Hey, I can get $1,000 to pull out of Full Good, or I can get 1,200 to pull out of ABC Fulfillment.
Right.
I'm going to Full Good because the overall experience is so much better. And those costs, the transportation costs, which you all also, can assist with, that's translating into the bottom line for that CPG brand as well.
Yeah, and I mean it's really fun and cute. Some of our where I call it cute, whatever. Some of our warehouse guys are like so awesome. They're like on first name basis with guys that drive across the country every day, and I mean we do a really good job of like let's get a food truck in here every once in a while. Let's get, let's treat them to things. And I think, I mean, listen, it costs us money, right? But I think at the end of the day, if you can create an experience for the brands, for the drivers, for everyone involved, it creates a culture and it's like that also is pretty disruptive, right? And but that takes energy. It takes so much energy to create like in any industry, but, like, really in this industry, it's a lot of energy. You're dealing with a lot of blue collar people that are uncomfortable with that. They just wanna stay in their space. They don't wanna interact it. And so to be able to kind of break that wall down and, like, humanize it, I think is, like, awesome. And, some drivers aren't gonna be receptive to it. Other drivers are gonna be super receptive. And it's interesting too because like a lot of brands that we work with, we handle a lot of freight for them. Some brands don't let us handle freight. And that's okay. But we always have feedback for them, right? Sometimes it's positive. Sometimes it's like, geez, where'd you get that driver's information from? We'd love to work with them. And other times it's kind of negative. And what I mean by that is like you can tell that they're like not valuing this driver because it's like the way the product arrived is so poorly managed and handled. Like, is that how they think about their brand? Right. And I talked to that, and my VP of ops does the same thing. Like we just try to talk to these brands and share with them, like, again, how you do one thing is how you do everything. And so if you're choosing a partner to drive your stuff across the country, for lack of a better word, who doesn't value what's in their trailer, then I mean, it shows up to our facility for storage. And I mean, there's tons of damage. Right. And so it's like, had you paid $100 more, $200 more for that LTL, I mean, or full truckload, I mean, spread that margin across all your units, right?
Again, you live in a transactional industry. Those things aren't even considered. They're not even on the
Yeah.
playing field. They're
Right,
way out in the
because
parking lot.
the guy in the Eiffel Tower, whether it be Whole Foods, whether it be whatever, is looking to make the most right? Who is the end user that's looking to make the most money on this, right? So, and if you look at a jar of peanut butter, I mean, there's 25 touches before it even gets to the shelf. So I understand the concern. I understand, but it's like, how do we create a more efficient environment where there's maybe 20 touches instead of 25? Or there's 10 even. And I think our industry's getting there. I mean, the efficiency, transparent, like these are all buzzwords, but like if you really live by them and you really think through the life cycle of a brand or, your beverage company, like, and think it through, you may not be able to do that as a founder, but like work with someone who can help you do that, right? And if Full Good can do that, or if, your team could do that, like, that's awesome. Have them on your team, you know? Or if someone else could do it, great. Like, let's get better as an industry in solving these problems.
I think that's why we hit it off. I think it's safe to say we speak the same language, Caitlin, because I love what you're saying here. And you even mentioned efficiencies. You know, technology is playing a huge role, and it's evolving extremely fast. Yes, it's impacting every industry across the U.S., but what's tech's role at Full Good, and how do you utilize that to help drive efficiencies and drive down costs with your clients?
Listen, I went into this thing shopping software, because I knew from day one, I'm like, okay, well, at TNA, we have a team of amazing IT staff. Like, I mean, we have our own IT team, right? We've got 10, 15 guys on that team, and, they like are the backbone of TNA, right? So I came from that world, right, of having a ton of support. I shopped for like a year. I shopped software as we were getting going, right? As we were developing processes and like really like who are we and what are we doing here and why are we doing it?
And
And
real
we
quick,
were
are
very
you at
successful.
the dog food brand?
No, so I like started Full Good and
No,
I just kind of went because how we started Full Good was our co-manufacturer for the dog food company was like a good friend and was like, Keatlin, um, can you help these other brands that are, like, in our facility figure this out? Because like, you've done a great job with this dog food company. Can you help these other brands? And so it just kinda started organically for me, and I developed I beta tested the model and, like, kinda developed in, like, a really small, warehouse. And that was before Full Good, like, FGLL, Fulfillment LLC even started, right? Um, so and this is but, in kind of, like, doing all of that, I was like, "Oh my gosh, there's actually no software, like, that really speaks to transparency and, like, lot codes and expiration dates, like, on the market, and so we're developing our own proprietary software, and it's been I mean, listen, I don't even wanna say how much money I've spent on this thing yet, but, I can tell you that I mean, I'm solving my own problems, but in speaking to some warehouse buddies that I've, like, developed, just being in this industry, I mean, I'm making waves enough that people are recognizing what we're doing here. Or I'm not just doing it, right? I've got an incredible team that's doing it, but we're doing good. And part of our name, full good, and so people are recognizing how are you doing it? How are you being support? And so we have this conversation all the time about tech. We're developing a really cool product that literally tells the story, like I spoke about earlier, of the life cycle of the brand. And what's important with that is it protects everyone in the life cycle of the brand. So it protects the founder, it protects the carrier bringing the trucks, right, of product, it protects the co-manufacturer, and it protects the consumer. And what I mean by that is, products arrive, they're given a barcode, we scan them in. If there's any level of defect, they're placed into quarantine. We inspect the trailer. How does the trailer look? Okay, it arrived on a reefer. The reefer was turned on. It was dry peanut butter. Let's flag it, right? Let's throw everything into quarantine. Let's talk to our carrier about this. Let's solve that problem first, right? Okay, carrier. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I still had my reefer on. Holy moly. I came from Salinas. I was just dropping off a produce, a thing of produce. I forgot to turn it off when I went to Oakland's to pick up, the peanut butter, and then it came here. Okay, so let's solve that problem for the brand first, right? So that notation is put on all of the pallets that arrive, right? So even though we all know peanut butter is not going to be affected by being refrigerated for 12, 20 hours, let's say on the road from California, we know it's going to be okay, right? But let's go through the proper steps, food safety wise. And again, this is not what a 3PL has to do, right? This
Correct.
is,
Correct.
I'm creating a new standard here, right? So we're in quarantine. We release all of that information to the client. Let's release photos, a receiving report, all of the things. Let's release the driver with a notation on the BOL that states as such, right? Let's contact, Justin and Brian's team. Let them know, hey guys, this is what happened. Unfortunate event. Please flag it. Do not pay your driver yet. The driver's aware, right? Like, let's get to the bottom of this. If insurance needs to be involved, cool. If not, awesome. Let's pay our bills, right? So that happens, right? Client releases the product, says, okay, the peanut butter is going to be fine, guys. Okay, I'm going to so we send them an affidavit that states, right? I release the peanut butter, put it into, inventory. Great. Let's slot those pallets then. Okay. Order management starts, right? Orders start flooding in. We start pulling from those pallets, right? Target does an order, right? We build a big pallet for Target. We know going to Target, the client knows the life cycle. There's all the tech is supporting the history, right? So the pallets of peanut butter could have sat for 2 weeks, right, before they were pulled from, right? So you have a whole life cycle of you have a timeline, you have notation, you have photos, you have everything that's needed. That process, I just couldn't find. I couldn't find it. And so we're developing the software and we're like 80% of the way through. And what I mean by that is like a lot of it's automated. A lot of it's just not client facing yet. But I mean, hey, I'll tell you right now, like Johnny that owns the peanut butter company, I could run that report for you. I could do everything that's needed in the event of a recall. Right. And so we made sure that like the skeleton of it in the event of a recall was supported before we even got this thing going. And now what we're building is like the use of AI, the use of like a few other tools. We're building some like really cool things that are going to support and create more efficiency, right? So all of a sudden, as our full good business grows, like I may not need 10 guys in the warehouse to support 57 brands. Maybe I need the same 10 guys to support 200 brands, right? So I don't need to hire 30 more guys, right? Because the tech will support them in their job. So yeah, so I mean it's exciting. We're stacking it with like a few other cool, pieces of technology, but I'm just like, I guess it's coming from TNA. Like I'm of the mindset of like, okay, it doesn't exist, let's just do it. And like I have, the ability to do so because I've got great brand partners that like believe in what we're doing. And I mean, we've been transparent with them and we've told them from day one, like, guys, we're building this thing. And so yes, oh, you need a report to prove that you're organic and that your, facility that we're housing it in organic grow. I got you. Like I'll pull that report. We've got photos, we've got everything that like would be needed. We have. It's just our support is our tech is like 80% there, right? We're really excited to be more client facing with the technology. So,
What came to mind is when you order I haven't ordered from Domino's, I don't know how long, but I know they have a system where you order it and it just walks you through the entire process till it gets to your
yeah.
doorstep. But they market it all the time, but it's like that times a million, I feel like. And it doesn't exist, which is even better. I'm excited to see how that, continues to develop. It sounds like a
Thank you.
massive positive disruption to your space. But if I'm, I mentioned this earlier, if I'm let's say a founder or co-founder or partner of a CPG brand, we're growing. I hear this constantly from our clients. We work with a lot of small to mid-size CPG brands, and it does seem like a pain point, but it's often just pushed to the side because what's available is just that. I feel like that is status quo. If I'm evaluating a 3PL fulfillment partner, you name it, what questions should I be asking or what should I be digging into? Because it sounds like there's a lot of fine print or smoke and mirrors to what is actually provided.
Yeah. Well, your fulfillment partner should be able to tell you right off the bat what things are going to cost. That was something that was very interesting to me. There's like a big movement happening within fulfillment that's like, oh, the pick and pack rates and da 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 and all this stuff. They make it like the wording. It's like they've got really good attorneys involved or something because the wording is it's very complicated to try to navigate. And so that was one thing that we did from day one. We have flat rate everything. At the end of the day, we need to get paid for what we're doing, but we are really big in on like, okay, great, you need us to do something that's maybe outside of your scope of work. Like we'll tell you, let's just charge you an hourly fee for this. If it takes us 15 minutes, great. You pay 15 minutes of $60 an hour or whatever it is. I think that's a really important question to ask your fulfillment partner is like, okay, great. What am I paying on a monthly? And maybe give them a scenario, right? I've got 50 direct to consumer orders. I've got 10 pallet orders and I'm going to store 10 pallets of product with you. What is that going to cost me? And I think that is something that brands don't feel empowered to do. Um, Another thing is kind of, can I come tour your facility or can I come visit? A lot of fulfillment companies will say no, which I think is so alarming.
That's not a
Yeah.
red flag or anything.
No, if that's not a red flag, like, I don't know what is. I found that, again, helping my friend with this dog food company, like, I would ask that question and I'm like, "Okay, am I just naive or why are you not allowing me in your facility?" So that's, like, very alarming to me. I mean, we've saved a few brands. Products have arrived to us with, like, dust and like not just dust, like layers of dust, right? And like various things that I'm like, "Oh my gosh, are they not cleaning their facility? Like they're dealing with food products." So we've had to like navigate through that for brands too, right? Where it's like, "Oh my gosh," and then there's perfectly fine product and it's like, "Shoot, you've got 20% of your product that we can't even utilize because your fulfillment company." I mean, so just asking those kind of basic like, "Can I come visit?" I think like another really important question is like, what do you stand for as a fulfillment company? What are you like, what do you try to get done every day? And like see if they can answer that question. Cause a lot of times they're like, we're just moving orders and and it's like, you're more than that. You're my operational partner and you're my support. And I mean, if as a brand owner, your heart isn't there, I guess great, go partner with that guy. But like, because there's some people that are doing that too. And that's okay. There's some people that are literally just in this to flip a brand or to make a quick buck or they think they're going to make a quick buck or whatever. You and I both know that that's not
Yeah.
really how it works, but in their mind, that's what they think, right? Like, oh, if Joe Schmo can make millions of dollars doing this, like I'm going to give it a go too. So I think those basic points, right? Just really simple, straightforward questions. And if they can't answer those without like red, pink flags going up, like be careful.
Yeah, I think that's often something that is being evaluated, but they may not know how to approach it or what exactly to look for because I think the level of transparency is so low. It's just what they're used to and what they would expect. So it
Right.
if someone were to look, maybe they're not a good fit right now or they're not really evaluating, but if someone were, let's say a founder or an executive of a CPG brand, if they're trying to learn more or, potentially set up a conversation with you, what avenue should they take?
To learn more about Full Good, I mean, our website's great, I Instagram, whatever. But like, I'm really, really readily like I'm available. Like, it's almost too available. LinkedIn, I'll message people forever. I'm on a few really cool Slack channels, and I check them like once or twice a week. CPG Startup has a cool Slack channel with over like 80,000 founders. So I like to participate in a lot of like those types of groups as well. I always want to provide value to brands, even if they don't end up working with me. Is like, hey, have you heard of this box company that's creating these custom, inserts or liners? Like, hey, have you? So I love doing that. I want to be known as like, how can I help? How can I help a brand like take one step forward, even if they don't work with us, right?
Do you still have all that was good, but the learning series, is that still active?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, we still have the learning series. So on Full Good on our website, we still have it's really cool. We released it actually in Q1 of 25 this year. We there's just so many questions that founders ask us all the time. And we're fine with being repetitive, but we really do want to provide value, even if we're not going to work with you. And there is like a learning series on our website. It's under $100, and we constantly are adding like new modules in there. I'm gonna record some modules actually like later today. And there's, a list of like what questions to ask your fulfillment team that you're gonna work with. There's, how to do fulfillment on your own. If you're a brand that wants to like move from farmers market to like selling online or like getting into Whole Foods or, trying. So we try to answer a lot of those questions for brands. But again, I mean, we're always available, to have conversations too. But there's a lot of cool content on our website.
That's perfect. And if you're listening, we'll include all of her contact information and instructions on how to find these resources that Caitlin mentioned.
Thank
Caitlin,
you.
you all have so much going on. It's exciting stuff. You have me fired up over here wanting to start up, I don't know, a protein bar company just so I could work with you a little bit more closely. But last question I have for you. What do you want your legacy to be when it's all said and done?
I want to be known for building something that is like real and authentic and like actually helpful. I want to be known for creating, a culture that speaks to so many brands, and like is helpful to a lot of people. That's my professional goal. Personally, I want to raise really amazing people. So I'm working on that too, really hard with my son and my daughter. Fun fact, I named Folgood after my kids. My son's name is Ford and my daughter's name is Georgia.
I love it.
So FG, I was like, what can I do with FG, but also something that stands. So a lot of, our name is right, like goodness. That's my legacy is as leaving a lot of good.
That's perfect. Well, Caitlin, I can't thank you enough. I know your time's
Thank
valuable,
you.
so I don't take it for granted. And we've fortunately been able to build a relationship over the last couple years. So looking forward to making a trip to visit in person. Hopefully hit
Yeah.
Red Rocks, and then thank you again. Appreciate the time.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Justin. Appreciate it.